At the age of 38, he was appointed choir leader and Kapellmeister of St. Thomas Church, a prestigious post that made Bach, in effect, the director of music for the entire city. He stayed in Leipzig for the next 27 years, the rest of his life.
Let's take a closer look at the composer's study during an ordinary work week in Leipzig, when he had to prepare a cantata for the upcoming Sunday. On Monday, he generally started by picking a text and thinking about how to set the text to music so that it would be a coherent whole. Then he had to prepare the physical materials for the cantata performance. He had a stack of blank paper in front of him, and he had an inkwell and a sandbox to dry the ink, a quill and a knife to make erasures, and he also needed an instrument, a clavichord, to try out things. Then he started by ruling the blank paper, preparing the score in that way by determining the layout of the cantata. Then he entered his musical thoughts, so he generally started with the chorus and added then the arias and the recits, and at the very end he put in the concluding chorale. Then when the score was finished, he had to copy out the parts. He generally did this with assistants, and then we see, as this sample shows, the 4 vocal parts that needed to be copied first, because he had to start rehearsing the choir first. Then he copied out the string parts, violins, viola, and then the wind parts, 2 oboes, 2 horns, and finally the basso continuo. Rehearsals started on Friday, and on Saturday he would for the first time hear the work as a whole, but there was generally time only for one quick dress rehearsal, and the cantata then had to be performed on Sunday morning at 8 o'clock. What a work week.
By 1725, Bach had written, rehearsed and performed 2 complete cycles of cantatas. A third followed by 1727 and a fourth by 1729, making 240 substantial pieces of music in 6 years, as well as 2 Magnificats, a Christmas oratorio, a series of organ chorale preludes, and a notebook of keyboard compositions for Anna Magdalena, with whom he was to have 13 children. But his tenure at Leipzig was not always happy. He argued about his salary, about the lack of extra fees. One winter it was so mild, he complained, that not enough people had died, with the result that his income from funeral music had been reduced. And about the overall standards of musicianship. He complained that the number of singers I have at my disposal are as follows: 17 usable, 20 not yet usable, and 17 useless. Despite Bach's dissatisfaction with the quality of available musicians, his creative ambition remained. In 1727, he gathered together the choirs of the churches and musicians from all over Leipzig to perform his extraordinary masterpiece, The Passion According to St. Matthew, a narrated drama involving recitative, dialogue, meditation, dramatic incident, arias, and chorales unprecedented in Western religious music.
There are many bits in it which surprise and startle me, and I can never quite know which bits are really going to get me, except one thing which always gets me, and I always prepare myself for it, try to resist it, or at least hide myself so that I'm not too shamingly sobbing. And that's the Abarmedich. I don't know why it gets me, even to think about it. Actually, I can feel the tears starting in my eyes now, and I don't know what it is about it. It's something about what it expresses, that moment of knowing that you have forgotten that someone has said something about what you're going to do, that you will betray me. And you've gone through the whole of this ghastly, disheveled night, and just as was predicted, you've gone and done it. You have done it. And you just beg for some sort of forgiveness. But it's the music in which it's expressed, which, that violin.
Towards the end of his life, Bach began to draw the strands of his musical output together. His Mass in B minor is made up of music composed between 1714 and 1749, the bulk of his musical career. Unperformed in his lifetime, it is both an anthology and a summation of Bach's choral music, spanning a vast range of available styles, from Gregorian and early Renaissance to the operatic and modern. By 1748, Bach's health was beginning to fail. His constitution was further undermined by 2 unsuccessful cataract operations. Despite his incipient blindness, Bach continued working, almost certainly on The Art of the Fugue. Like the Mass in B minor, it is a compendium of his musical thoughts and ideas, but the work itself is unfinished. Bach died on July the 28th, 1750. He was 65 years old. He left no will, but over 1,000 pieces of music. He was described by Beethoven as the immortal god of harmony. For Wagner, he was the most stupendous miracle in all music.
It is interesting that he writes the most difficult music intellectually, he writes the most powerful music emotionally, and at the same time he writes the hardest music to play among all of the composers that we have. It's a very extraordinary achievement. And above all, for me, it's extraordinary when you think that almost all of this was done in what amounted to a backwater in Leipzig, in a town where he was known internationally only to a very small group of amateurs and connoisseurs, and had absolutely no real public recognition until something like 100 years after his death.